I always thought the scariest envelopes were the ones from hospitals and lawyers. I was wrong. The envelope that changed my life had no logo, no company name, no return address. Just my name, written in black ink, slightly shaky, as if the person who wrote it was nervous. It arrived on a Tuesday morning, the kind of gray, quiet day when nothing important is supposed to happen. I had just finished making my tea when I heard the mailbox creak and the soft thud on the floor. At first, I didn't even bend down to pick it up. My knees are not what they used to be, and I thought it was just another advertisement for hearing aids or retirement homes. But then I saw my full name on it, Margaret Louise Turner, not just current resident or dear customer. My husband used to say, when someone uses your full name, they either love you very much or they're about to ruin your day. He's been dead for 8 years, but in that moment, his voice echoed so clearly in my head that I actually hesitated. I opened it at the kitchen table, where every important conversation in this house has happened. There was no letter inside, no explanation, just a folded piece of paper with a barcode, a lab logo, and numbers lined up in neat columns. At the top, in bold, I read, DNA relationship test result. For a second, I thought they had sent it to the wrong address. I'm 72 years old. Whoever is testing DNA, it's not my business, I thought. But then my eyes fell on the names printed right under the title. On the left, alleged grandmother, Margaret Louise Turner. On the right, alleged grandchild, Lily and Carter. I felt the air leave my lungs. Lily. My Lily. The girl whose first steps were taken on this very kitchen floor, from my arms to her father's and back. The girl who used to sleep on my chest when colic kept her awake all night. The girl who calls me Grandma Maggie and writes me little notes saying I'm her favorite human on earth. Someone out there had tested if she was really my granddaughter, and hadn't told me. My hands started to tremble as I scanned the page. There were words I didn't understand, things like allele, locus, and probability index. My brain wanted to stop, to shut down, but my eyes kept searching for something, anything, that sounded like a verdict. Finally, at the bottom of the page, in simple language, I found it. The probability of a biological grandparent-grandchild relationship between the tested individuals is 0%. Relationship excluded. I read that sentence 3 times. Then the letters began to blur. I took off my glasses, wiped them, put them back on, and read again. Relationship excluded. It sounded so cold, so mathematical, so final. As if the love I had poured into that child for 15 years could be erased with a decimal point and a percentage. I whispered out loud, just to hear something human in the room. This has to be a mistake. Of course it's a mistake. That's when another thought hit me, sharp and cruel. If it wasn't a mistake, someone had asked for this test. DNA doesn't fall from the sky. Someone took samples from Lily. Someone signed papers. Someone paid a lab. Someone wanted to know if she was really mine. I looked around my empty kitchen and, for the first time in a long time, I felt like a stranger in my own house. How many secrets were walking across my floors without me noticing? My first instinct was to call my son, Daniel. He's always been my safe place, the one who used to defend me when his father's drinking made him mean. Now he's a grown man with his own family, his own mortgage, his own worries. But still, in my head, he's the boy who brought me dandelion flowers and said, "Mom, you're my favorite person." If something this big had happened, surely he would know. Surely he would tell me. Surely. I picked up the phone and dialed his number, but my finger froze before I pressed call. A memory flashed. Last month, when Lily came over wearing a long-sleeved shirt in the middle of July. She said she was just cold, but she avoided my eyes when I tried to hug her. Daniel had been unusually tense too, checking his phone again and again, jumping at every notification. And my daughter-in-law, Emily barely looked at me at all. She kept giving Daniel those quick, sharp glances couples exchange when they share a secret. The realization slid into my mind like a knife. Maybe this wasn't just something that happened to all of us. Maybe it was something they did. Together. On purpose. My son, my own flesh and blood, and the woman he chose to share his life with. I put the phone down slowly. If they had already decided to keep this from me, calling them in a panic wouldn't bring me answers. It would just warn them that I knew. So instead, I folded the paper very carefully, as if it was made of glass, and could cut me if I moved too fast. I slid it back into the envelope and hid it inside the old recipe book my mother left me, the one nobody else ever touches. Standing alone in my kitchen, I made myself a quiet promise. I will find out who did this and why. And when I'm done, this house will never be the same again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the old house breathe, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the hallway clock, the wind nudging the shutters like fingertips. I've lived here 43 years, but it felt unfamiliar, as if every corner were hiding something I hadn't seen before. Secrets make even the safest home feel haunted. At 7 the next morning, I drove to Daniel and Emily's house without calling. I needed to see their faces, raw, unprepared, before they could arrange their lies. The driveway was empty, but Lily's bicycle was still leaning against the porch. Pink ribbons on the handlebars, one torn. She hasn't outgrown it, even at 15. Some part of her is still a child. That thought almost broke me again. Emily opened the door. Perfect hair, perfect smile, the kind of practiced hospitality that hides more than it shows. Maggie. What a lovely surprise, she said, voice sweet like powdered sugar, lovely until it dissolves in the mouth. Behind her, Daniel appeared, slower, guarded. When our eyes met, something flickered in his expression. Guilt has a look, and I've seen it before. I asked to see Lily. Emily hesitated for a breath too long, then called up the stairs. Lily came down wearing that same long-sleeved shirt, even though the weather was warm enough to melt ice cream in minutes. She hugged me, but it wasn't tight like usual. She felt cautious, as if she were afraid of breaking something between us, something fragile I couldn't yet see. We sat in the living room, sunlight filtering through pale curtains, soft and quiet as truth waiting to be spoken. I didn't mention the envelope. Not yet. Instead, I asked casual questions, tasting each answer like medicine with an unknown label. How have you been sleeping, dear? Good, Lily whispered, not meeting my eyes. Any new school projects? Nothing special, Daniel replied quickly before she could speak. And how was last weekend at the fair? Emily's smile tightened. We didn't go after all. I froze. I still had the photo Lily sent me, cotton candy in her hand, a Ferris wheel behind her, a man's arm partially visible on her shoulder. Lily had told me they spent the whole afternoon together. But now, 3 people sat in front of me delivering a single, rehearsed answer. They were lying. All of them. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I said something small and gentle, the kind of phrase that feels harmless on the surface but lands like a seed in soil. I found something small at home yesterday, something I didn't expect. 3 heads turned toward me at once. Emily blinked too fast. Daniel held his breath. And Lily, sweet Lily, flinched, almost imperceptibly. That was the moment I knew none of this was an accident. They weren't confused. They weren't scared. They were preparing. Preparing for a future without me. Preparing for a truth powerful enough to tear this family apart. I smiled softly, pretending to know less than I did. We'll talk about it soon. When everyone is ready. Emily's knuckles whitened around her coffee cup. Daniel didn't speak for the rest of the visit. Lily kept her sleeves pulled tight, as if protecting herself from something I couldn't yet name. As I drove home, one thought circled in my mind like a crow. If they're willing to lie about something as small as a weekend fair, what else are they hiding? And why does it feel like I'm the only one left in the dark? I couldn't shake the image of Lily's sleeves. The way her fingers tugged at the cuffs like she was holding herself together. A child hides only 2 things with such care, bruises or guilt. Neither possibility let me breathe. 3 days passed before I went back, long enough for them to believe I'd dropped the subject, short enough to show that I was still present. This time I didn't knock. I walked in with a spare key Daniel gave me years ago, back when secrets didn't live in the walls. The house smelled of lemon polish and something else, something metallic, sharp. Fear, maybe. Lily was in the kitchen alone. She jumped when she saw me, eyes wide like a startled animal. I smiled, gentle and slow, the way you approach something broken so it won't run. She relaxed a little. Not much. I asked if she wanted to bake something with me, cookies, just like we used to when she was small enough to stand on a chair and steal chocolate chips before I turned around. She nodded. Small victories matter when you're chasing truth. I handed her the mixing spoon, and as she reached forward, her sleeve slid back just half an inch. But half an inch was enough. There, stark against pale skin, a yellowed bruise the size of a thumb. Old enough to fade, new enough to hurt. My heart thudded, so loud, I thought she could hear it. She saw my gaze and yanked the fabric down fast, too fast for innocence. She didn't say a word, but her breathing told the story her mouth refused to speak. I could have asked who did that to you. I could have held her hands and told her you're safe with me. But children living inside secrets don't answer direct questions. They run. They shut down. They protect. So instead I whispered something that cracked her right open. You don't have to be afraid of me, Lily. Her eyes filled instantly, like a dam that had been waiting years to fall. One tear escaped, then another. She tried to speak, her lips trembling around words that never formed. And then we heard footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Daniel. He entered the kitchen with a smile that didn't match his eyes. He looked at me, then at Lily, then at the cookie dough like he was trying to decide if the scene was harmless or dangerous. I asked casually, "She's been wearing long sleeves often. Is she cold?" His answer came too quick. Too defensive. She likes them. Trendy, you know? Teenagers. A lie as thin as tissue paper. Lily kept staring at the bowl, tears falling silently, spoon unmoving. My son saw it. He saw his daughter breaking right there in front of him, and instead of comforting her, he placed a hand on her shoulder. Not soft. Not protective. Possessive. And she flinched. Not a small flinch. A flinch of memory. A flinch of fear. My blood froze. Whatever truth lived in that house, it was bigger than DNA and deeper than identity. Something was wrong in that family, wrong enough to bruise a child who wasn't even mine. I folded my apron. I should go, I said quietly. Daniel nodded too quickly again. Lily didn't look up. When I got home, I sat in the same kitchen where I opened the DNA results and realized something terrifying. The envelope wasn't just showing Lily isn't my blood. It was a warning. Someone sent it because they wanted me to see what I was refusing to see all along. This wasn't just a stolen lineage. It was a stolen life. I didn't leave the house for 2 days after that. I moved through rooms like a ghost, teacup in hand, thoughts circling like vultures waiting for certainty. There is a special kind of grief in realizing the people you raised, the people you love, may not be who you believed. It's like mourning the living. On the second evening, as twilight bled across my curtains, the phone rang. Not my cell. The landline, the one nobody uses anymore. The one only telemarketers and wrong numbers touch. I almost ignored it, but something in my gut, the same instinct that warned me during storms when Daniel was a child, told me to answer. I lifted the receiver, heart already racing. A woman breathed on the other end, not speaking, just breathing. "Hello," I said softly. No reply, only the faintest sound, like someone holding back words with force. Then a whisper, so fragile I had to press the phone tighter to hear it. "You're right not to trust them." My body went cold. "Who is this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. A shaky exhale. Then, "Lily needs you. But you must move quietly. If he finds out you're investigating, he'll shut her away." He. Not they. He. My son. I gripped the phone until my knuckles whitened. "Tell me who you are," I pleaded. "Why send me the DNA test? Why now?" Silence stretched, long, heavy, trembling. Then, "Because you are the only one who loved her without wanting something back." Before I could ask another question, the caller hung up. The click echoed through my house like a gunshot. I stood frozen for a long time, phone still to my ear, as pieces finally began forming a shape. Someone in Daniel's life, someone close enough to know everything, wanted me to uncover the truth myself. Someone who feared him enough not to speak their name. I poured the last of my tea down the sink. My hands no longer shook from confusion. Now they shook with purpose. If Lily wasn't my blood, someone put her in my family deliberately. If she was bruised, someone was hurting her. If someone warned me, they believed I could stop it. This was bigger than betrayal. Bigger than blood. This was war. And for the first time in weeks, my fear hardened into something sharper, something older, something I had forgotten I still possessed. Resolve. I would uncover every secret, every lie, every shadow in the corners they thought I couldn't see. If they wanted to hide the truth, they chose the wrong grandmother to deceive. Because once a mother becomes a hunter, she doesn't stop until she brings her child back from hell, blood or not. The next morning I woke before the sun, mind sharp in that uncomfortable way conviction feels when it refuses to let you lie to yourself anymore. I made coffee, strong enough to wake the dead, and climbed the attic ladder for the first time in years. Dust rolled off old trunks like breath from forgotten memories. Why the attic? Because secrets don't live in the open. They hide where people assume nobody looks. Daniel and Emily had moved half their belongings here around the time Lily was 3, when, coincidentally, her personality changed from bright joy to skittish caution. Nobody questioned it then. But grief ages the mind, and suspicion sharpens memory like bone against stone. I opened the first trunk. Nothing. The second, old clothes and photo albums. The third, locked with a cheap silver padlock. That was the first sign. Nobody locks what doesn't matter. I searched the attic for anything that could break it, and found my husband's rusted hammer behind an old Christmas wreath. I struck once, gently, the metal snapping like a confession. Inside, wrapped in newspaper dated 15 years ago, I found a birth certificate not Lily's. A different name, different parents. A hospital bracelet tiny enough to circle my thumb. The name tag worn, letters faded by time. A Polaroid of a newborn with Emily, smiling too widely, eyes too cold. My heart twisted. This was not adoption. Not charity. This was replacement. A switch. A transaction. I reached deeper into the box and froze when my fingers touched something soft. Cloth. Folded carefully like relic. A baby blanket. Pink. Embroidered not with Lily's name but Rose. The name on the certificate. Not Lily. Rose. The truth crashed through me. Lily was not the imposter. She was the stolen child. My stolen child. My granddaughter or not, she was taken from someone, robbed of identity before she knew she had won. Tears blurred the attic light. Not from betrayal, but from rage so protective it swallowed every other feeling whole. I held the tiny blanket to my chest and breathed in dust and memory and grief. Someone loved this baby before she became Lily Carter. Someone lost her. I put everything gently in a tote bag and felt something small slide out from a newspaper fold, a slip of paper, yellowed with age, ink smudged but still readable. Don't let him take her again. Him. Not them. Him. My son. The message wasn't a warning, it was a plea. From a mother who lost a child. From a woman whose baby wore a bracelet I now held in my shaking hands. The attic felt smaller. Air thicker. Truth heavier than wood beams above me. If Daniel stole that child, who did she once belong to? My phone buzzed in my pocket, an unknown number. I answered. No breathing this time. No hesitation. Just a voice I recognized instantly. Because you never forget the sound of your daughter-in-law when she's cornered. Maggie, we need to talk. And you need to come alone. The line went dead. I arrived at Emily's house just before dusk. The world dipped in that bruised purple light that makes everything look like a warning. The neighborhood was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that feels staged. Her car was in the driveway. Daniel's wasn't. Good. Whatever truth she was prepared to spill needed to be said without him. Emily opened the door before I even knocked. Eyes red. Hands trembling. Mascara washed away like ink in rain. She looked less like the woman who smiled through lies, and more like someone who had been running from herself for years. Come in, she whispered. Not an invitation, a surrender. We sat at the table, the same place where I once ate birthday cake and laughed with a girl who wasn't who I thought she was. The air tasted like fear and citrus cleaner. Emily slid a folder across the surface.
Thin, worn, edges softened by time.
My fingers hovered over it, but I didn't open it. Talk first, I said. And she did. Slow at first, then like floodwater through a broken dam. She met Daniel when she was 19. He was charming then, poetic, impulsive, intoxicating in the way dangerous people often are. She confessed things I didn't know. His temper, his jealousy, the way he believed love meant possession. I listened, every word reshaping the sun. I thought I knew. Then came the night Lily, or Rose, was taken. Daniel had been drinking, fought with Emily, left the house, didn't return for hours. When he came back, he wasn't alone. He carried a baby bundled in a hospital blanket, still red-skinned and new to the world. He told Emily they needed to leave town now. He said the mother didn't want the child. He said they were saving her. Emily knew it was a lie, but she stayed. Because loving a man sometimes feels like drowning, and women drown quietly every day. They moved, changed names, built a new life. Daniel forged documents. Emily played along. And for years, they believed they had outrun fate. But 2 months ago, someone contacted Emily, a woman searching for the daughter stolen from her 15 years ago. And Emily ignored her. Until the woman sent the DNA results. Until guilt became heavier than fear. Emily looked up at me, eyes broken, voice splintered. I wanted to tell you sooner. But Daniel would never let the truth come out. He's not afraid of losing me. He's afraid of losing control. My pulse throbbed like war drums. Anger rose in me like lightning looking for a place to strike. Where's the woman? I asked. Emily swallowed, then slid the folder closer. Inside, a photograph of a woman in her early 30s, eyes hollow with grief. Hospital discharge papers. A missing child report, closed years ago, marked presumed deceased. A handwritten note. Bring her back to me. I never stopped loving her. My hands shook. Not from fear. From purpose. For the first time, Lily had a name, a history, a mother waiting in the dark. You need to leave before Daniel comes home, Emily whispered. He knows the DNA test was sent. He's been paranoid since. If he realizes I told you. A car door slammed outside. Both of us froze. Headlights poured through the curtains like interrogation lamps. Daniel was home. The moment Daniel's footsteps hit the porch, the entire house seemed to shrink. Emily looked at me like prey looks at another animal, not for fear of me, but because we were now both inside a cage someone else held the keys to. I slipped the folder into my coat, pressing it against my side like a second heartbeat. Evidence. Truth. A weapon. Daniel unlocked the door. He didn't enter immediately, he waited. Listening. Predators don't rush. They enjoy the moment before their prey realizes the world has changed. Emily's breath trembled. Mine steadied. When Daniel stepped inside, his smile was soft, practiced wrong. He kissed Emily's head, touched her cheek, the gesture tender, but her body tightened beneath it. She didn't melt into him. She endured him.
And he noticed.
His eyes flicked to me.
Slow.
Calculated. Curious. Like a man measuring a threat. What brings you here tonight, Mom? Sweet voice. Acid underneath. I answered calmly. Emily invited me. He didn't look at her.
Didn't need to.
The silence was thick enough to smother. His hand tightened on her shoulder, casual to anyone else, but I saw the pressure in his fingers, the warning in the gesture. Emily lowered her gaze to the floor. He already knew she was breaking. He could smell guilt like blood and water. Daniel poured himself a drink. Whiskey, uncut, the way he took it when he needed courage or control. He leaned on the counter like a king surveying 2 disloyal subjects. If the 2 of you were talking, he said, I hope everything said was correct. Polite words. Threat disguised as grammar. Emily's voice cracked, the smallest sound. Daniel's jaw twitched. Time was running thin. I placed my hands flat on the table, grounding myself like roots through the wood. Daniel, I said evenly, I found something in the attic. The quiet that followed didn't feel human. He didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't ask what, because he already knew. He set the glass down too carefully. Then I believe we need to have a much more honest conversation. His eyes were calm, not panicked, not desperate. That scared me more. He wasn't afraid of what I knew. He was prepared. Prepared for exposure. Prepared for confrontation. Prepared for a future where truth either dies, or I do. Emily's chair scraped as she stood, small, shaking, but finally alive with courage.
I told her, she said.
And there it was, the fracture Daniel could no longer plaster over. His gaze snapped to her with the precision of a blade. Something cold passed through his expression, the kind of cold men feel when their power is threatened. The whiskey glass shattered in his hand. He didn't flinch at the blood. He simply smiled, thin and empty. So, he murmured, crimson dripping down his wrist, now 3 people know. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed steady. No, I corrected. 4. His eyes narrowed. I slipped my phone from my pocket, open recording screen glowing like salvation. I recorded everything. Emily gasped. Daniel's face drained. For the first time since all of this began, I had power. And I wasn't leaving that house without Lily. Daniel stepped forward, slow, deliberate. And that's when a voice echoed from the hallway.
Dad.
Lily, wide-eyed, frozen, listening, hearing truth for the first time in her life. Her sleeves slipped down her wrists, bruises exposed like testimony. Everything stopped. No lies left to stand on. No secrets left to hide. Just a girl with stolen blood, 2 adults drowning in guilt, and a man built on control finally losing it. The fracture had become a break that would shatter everything. I hung up, engine rumbling, night swallowing the road ahead. Lily leaned her head on my shoulder, not as a child unsure of her identity, but as one who finally understood she had been living inside someone else's lie. Grandma, she whispered, I want to know her, but I don't want to lose you. I kissed her hair, the same way I did when she was small enough to fit in one arm. You won't, I promised. Blood is just a story the body tells. Love is the story we choose. As we pulled away, headlights flared in the mirror. A car. Following. Getting closer. Daniel. The headlights behind us weren't casual, weren't passing, weren't fate. They held steady, same speed, same distance, like a shadow with purpose. Daniel wasn't hiding anymore. He was hunting. I pressed the gas lightly. The car behind pressed too. Lily's fingers dug into the seat, knuckles white as bone. She didn't speak, she knew. You don't need language to recognize danger when it's the same shape it's always been. I turned left instead of right, away from the main road. If he followed, there would be no doubt. He followed. My heart beat once, heavy, like a warning bell inside my ribs. We were driving into the countryside now, where streetlights vanish and darkness sits thick on the asphalt like tar. The farm Evelyn mentioned was 20 minutes deeper into this black, unlit world. And Daniel was coming with us. I dialed Evelyn on speaker. We're being followed. A pause, sharp, controlled. By him, she asked. Yes. Another voice joined, deep, older, unfamiliar. You're not alone out there, he said. Who is that? I asked. My brother, Evelyn answered. He's been waiting for this night almost as long as I have. 2 cars. 1 enemy. 1 family lost. 1 family waiting. The past and future were colliding at 60 miles per hour. A minute later, headlights flared ahead, not behind. Another vehicle on the road. Coming toward us. I braced for impact, but then the car rolled to a stop and blinked its lights twice. A signal. Evelyn. I slowed. Daniel didn't. He sped up. Closing in. Predators rush when prey stops running. The moment I pulled beside Evelyn's car, 2 figures stepped out, Evelyn and her brother, holding flashlights that cut the dark clean in half. The light fell across Evelyn's face, and I saw 15 years of grief collapse into hope the moment her eyes found Lily. Lily stepped out of my car slowly, shaking, breathing in sobs she didn't allow to escape. Her feet touched the dirt like she was afraid the ground might reject her. Evelyn walked toward her with a softness I won't forget if I live to be 1,000. She didn't run, didn't grab, didn't collapse. She simply touched Lily's cheek with the back of her fingers and whispered, "I thought I would die without ever seeing you again." Lily's face crumpled. She fell forward into her mother's arms, a life returning to itself. And then Daniel's engine roared behind us. He wasn't slowing. He was accelerating. Straight toward us. Evelyn's brother moved first, stepping in front of Lily and Evelyn with a metal crowbar in his hand, boots planted deep in the dirt. I stepped beside him, not young, not strong, but unmoving, because love makes barricades of bone and will. "You don't want to do this, Daniel," I shouted. But the man in the car wasn't my son anymore. He was the boy who learned control meant possession. He was the man who believed love could be stolen and kept. He was the father who bruised his daughter because he feared losing her. He slammed the brakes at the last possible second, tires screaming, gravel exploding across our legs. The car skidded sideways, stopping so close I felt the heat of the engine on my shins. Daniel stepped out, eyes wild, breath shaking.
Control gone.
"She's mine," he snarled, looking at Lily, not as a person, but as property. Lily clutched Evelyn tighter. And that was the moment Daniel realized the truth he could never undo. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. Fear is power. Without it, he had nothing. He lunged forward, but Evelyn's brother grabbed him, pinning him to the dirt. Daniel fought wildly, cursing, teeth clenched, furious at a world he couldn't bend under his will. "You took her," he screamed. Evelyn stepped forward, calm, steady, lethal in a way only a mother with nothing left to lose can be. "No," she said. "You bought her." The night held that sentence like a blade at Daniel's throat. Lily stared at him, not with fear, but with clarity. "You're not my father," she whispered, and it broke him more completely than any weapon could have. He stopped fighting, stopped yelling, stopped existing in the shape of power. He just knelt there, a man who built his life on stolen love and finally realized none of it was real. None of it was ever his. And in that silence, thick as soil over a grave, something inside me shifted. Daniel wasn't a monster born. He was a tragedy built. But tragedy doesn't excuse harm. Not bruises. Not kidnapping. Not ownership disguised as love. I walked to Lily, wrapped my arm around her shoulders, and turned her away from the wreckage of the man who raised her with the wrong kind of love. Because healing begins when you walk away. And we walked. Toward Evelyn.
Toward a new life.
Toward truth. Behind us, Daniel sobbed into the dirt, the sound of control dying. Ahead of us, Evelyn opened her arms wide, the sound of a mother's heart finally unbroken. Lily looked to me once more.
Fear gone.
Identity growing. "Grandma," she said softly, "can love make a family even when blood can't?" I smiled, the kind of smile that comes only after surviving fire. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "love is the only thing that ever could."